Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our third podcast of the data driven supply chain. We have a very interesting topic in discussion today. So, what we're talking about today is the business risks of not automating the supply chain. And I want you all to take a moment and imagine an employee in your procurement team who completes all the work on time, never calls in sick, never asks for a raise or promotion, and rarely makes any mistakes. So that's the name of that employer. That employee is literally what automation can do for your business, or what automation can do for procurement team. So yeah, Yacine, what's your thoughts about how important is? I mean, I guess we all know it's important, but what do you see? How do you see automation as a part of the procurement process?
Yeah, uh, I think I think there's no way it has no place in the future. I think it's just impossible. And then what we're seeing right now, and what I'm seeing with like clients I'm meeting and stuff, and the story that they're telling me about how they're working, I think it's just a byproduct of history. But if you see the thought leader into that space, and then if you see like what the actual end user needs and what they ask for, what they're asking for is automation, right? They're asking for like, hey, can I not duplicate the data all the time? Can I do this work in one click because I just want to automate the flow and stuff? And it's not like automating their job away. That's not the stuff. It's the automating the mind numbing type of task that just you have to do over and over and over again because there's just no flow to do it. So in my view, like in supply chain and procurement, more specifically, I think we'll see more and more of this trend in the near future, and I don't think it's gonna be by choice. I think at some point people will require that. I just saw an interesting LinkedIn post by Daniel Barnes, shoot out a really cool guy on LinkedIn, and he said like, if I was to go back in time, I will never go into a procurement role if there was no software in place to help me out. Never. So I think that there's an interesting trend of idea pointing toward like more automation in procurement.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess if you talk to any VP or any leader in procurement, I don't think anybody essentially says no to automation, right? Everybody's like, yes, 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 we want to do it. So let's like take it step by step. First thing, what parts of your procurement or supply chain in the bigger picture should you automate? And a trick question is like, what parts should you not automate?
That's good. That's good because I think this ties also up to when thing crumble and doesn't work out, right? And I think when like a AI project and or like just automation project in general crumble is when um, people are trying to do too much at the same time, and then they touch a specific portion that like it shouldn't have touched. It was fine, right? And it would have been fine for the next like 10 years or something. So in procurement, um, like well, I think we'll discuss it a bit more afterward also, but the part that you should definitely touch is everything that is kind of mind numbing and that can introduce errors because there's a human intervention and then there's absolutely no value added. So for example, if you have to if you're receiving a screenshot from your project manager, right, that say like, hey, can you get me this part with this guy, and then you have to type in what the hell is in the screenshot because you can't copy paste it into an Excel spreadsheet. Then you send this out to get a quote, and then you get it back, and then you enter it back to your system. This should not be doing. No one should be doing this, right? There should be a system in place so that the flow is already mapped out and it can just go. That's one example. The part that I think you should never and you should be wary of automating always, and it should act as a gate, is like a higher level order decision, right? If there's a decision that you need to make, right, which supplier should I go with, right? Or which I don't know, what's the split between the parts for this guy and this other guy? How should I set up my contract and stuff? like higher level order thinking, keep it in the human end, but like fix up the rest beforehand. At some point, maybe there's also like some aspect of this work that can be automated too. Let's say a supplier selection, when you have like 200 of them and you can't like look at each of them because you don't know them personally. Of course, yes, but like at first, don't touch that part and just focus on where the error lies, and that those that are really costly.
Yeah, well, and just one point I would add to that is like it's always a good idea to do a bit of cost benefit analysis. So if you have some operation that you do automation for, you calculate how many times you do it, and literally you can go down to like, okay, this is how much I pay for this, and this is how much it cost me if I get a software. I do that, but like one risk that always is there is it's very difficult to measure the value of avoiding human errors, right? You can do it, but it's like, okay, yeah, it's still difficult to do it. But then for a business that is running, and if you want the business to sort of function with discipline and zero errors, and sort of like make it seem natural of how this whole process works, then it's imperative that like the stuff that you mentioned, drawings and all of that stuff, you need to automate.
Yeah, definitely. And like a really good way of checking like if like how much the error will cost is you go to see who is doing it, like the manual stuff, and you just check out how stressed they are, right? If their stress level is like over the top, let's say they are in aerospace, and if they mess up, the line will be stopped, and then they will need to like change plane, and then you have literal plane that you can't sell that are parked in the parking lot, and you see like you see their stress level. That's a good indication of your ROI here, if it's difficult to quantify.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you raised. I guess I would like do a segue to another part of like, do you think that because procurement folks or purchasing folks or all of folks in supply chain in general have a lot of redundant work that they need to do, maybe the cause of the high churn rate or high turnover that we see in procurement, or like from this aspect, how do you see that?
Yeah, right now, I've looked at the stats and I've looked at the some people in that market, and it's in a booming demand, right? People in procurement right now like are almost like what the software engineer were in 2020. Everybody wants one right now, like or a data scientist. So uh, 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 from my point of view, the cost of doing an error and then like burning your people out because they're too stressed now is too high in procurement. It's too high to not account for like their either their well-being or like the fact that their job is like completely mind numbing. I was doing like uh, a customer a visit at some point, and the one person that was the in procurement over there, I could see that the meeting I was having with her was like the one thing that was too much, and she was like, I could feel her tenseness and the stress and the way that she was organizing everything in her mind, and like I could see like her desk and stuff. And the thing that she was saying was that I'm currently at like more than 40 hours to get this thing rolling, right? Without any software and stuff. So what I feel here is that the market has shifted a bit, like the labor market on this fair, and that now the cost of error, both in the business sense and the human capital, is a bit too high to not consider like at least just automatizing a bunch of stuff that is just like mind numbing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I was reading like a parable of it, like if it's like if you could take this digital work that procurement folks do of like all of this manual stuff, and you want to like compare it to something, it's kind of like in the old days when there was a guy who's putting coal in the thing, so things are sort of like starting to move. Somebody's like, there's some hamsters moving to create electricity for the facility. It kind of like reminds you of those times, and specifically. Okay, cool. So this is good. What do you think are like some of the biggest risks that happen if you don't automate, what are some of like a few risks that you can think of that come as a result of resisting to automate or doing things the traditional way because we've always done it this way? What happens?
Yeah. There's risk in both ways. Like there's a risk of doing the automation and whatever, and it's just a major mess up. And then people are like, okay, wow, we just wasted our time. Let's go back to the thing, and now we're never gonna do this thing again, right? We're never going back to the automation route. So there's risk in both sides, but I think like right now the risk is too high, and it's kind of everything that there need to be automated already have been done in other industries, in other jobs, in other aspect of like work life. So the risks are high, and the risk of messing it up is of error is high, but the risk of implementation is like almost literally really near zero right now. The area that I think that are most costly, like in terms of risk, is like just errors in your operation, and then let's say you're by accident sending the stuff to the wrong person or not attaching the drawing and stuff. You just you just trash the thing again for like 3 days, and then there's back and forth. People are confused on both sides. Let's say your suppliers and whatever, and then you're just wasting time, right? You're just wasting time, and you're stressing yourself up, and you're always going to be doubting yourself again and again. I think this is one thing. The second aspect that is the most important right now, I think, is like just burning your team out. Because if you're not supporting your team with like tools and stuff, and you're just like, hey, just do that thing, like you say, like you copy this, and then you copy that, and then you copy this, and you copy that, and you put it into the ERP 100 times this week, and we're gonna do this again next week, and might double because we have more order. That's a best recipe for someone to just consider a career transition, right? At some point, if this is the work that has to be done. And disclaimer, no one like that. No one like these tasks, like, and absolutely no one in existing like these type of tasks, which are completely repetitive. There needs to be some sort of creativity or decision that you need to be able to do, to have some sort of agency into your work, right? And I think this is where most people want to get at some point. They're just like, okay, I wanted to do this, and in fact, this is done. Now I have to make some decision that pertain to my skills. And procurement in specific, it's such a rich portion of of any companies, right? They are the one deciding what goes in, and they are negotiating with people outside, right? There's a lot of things more than just like doing those mind-numbing, dumb, repetitive tasks. So that's the two main risks of not automating that I see.
And I guess one I would add is like data collection and quality of the data that you generally have for having insights from those business processes. This completely goes away when you are doing everything manually. You have no idea. Like I can remember again speaking to one of the customers of like having to go back through all of the emails and all of the threads, and then realizing, hey, I forgot to CC one of the guys that was supposed to make that decision, and because the email thread did not have this person CC'd, apparently nothing was approved, the requisition didn't go through, and then they find it out so much later into the cycle that even finding out what was the root of this whole problem takes time, and then time costs you money. So yeah, definitely that's part of the risk.
And a story I have on this is like one time I was visiting a business, and I was like, hey, but like with the I was presenting something that you can collect data and stuff, and have it centralized. And I was saying like, right now, how do you collect your data? And then she explained me her process is like every email ever has to go into that address, and then we have it on this address. And I was like, and then what you do with it? And like, oh, just in case, like audit and stuff, if we need to go back to it, but we have all the data. And I'm like, wow. So PDF, Excel, just raw email in this thing. And they have an ERP system and all the jazz. But like, because they have to deal with people external, and they have no time to update the ERP, what happened is just like, they just dump everything constantly like into that big messy bucket. And it's like if you were to delete it or like put it over there, I will have the same impact, I believe, in terms of your capacity to do data analysis on it.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Okay, let's get down to sort of the nitty gritty of like which functions that you see within the supply chain. Definitely, if you don't have these automated, just go and get them automated today. What functions would you like specifically go from, like PO, RFQ? Which departments do you think should be the first ones to be automated?
Yeah, for sure. So if I had to check one out, like anything that connects your whatever is in your ERP system or request to the outside should have some sort of automation that like bring you to that point, right? So like I'm working in this sphere, so I know, but like having a request for something and then being able to send to a bunch of supplier, it should be as simple as like, hey, we need that, and then here are the drawing and then the sketch file and whatever, and then we need that by this date, and then you just have your bank of supply. You can just select and then send it out and then do the back and forth there. That should be automated. It's possible in 2022 to have this connected to ERP and not have to get a literal JPEG of the request, fetching it into the ERP, all the drawing, and then just like putting it to an Excel spreadsheet and figuring out which the supplier are, entering them one by email because you don't want to send the same email, and then sending them out. And every day you're gonna keep like looking at your inbox to see that you don't miss one, and then you put them back into your Excel, and then you get the part and you put that to the ERP. That should not exist. I believe this is the most critical one, and everything afterward, like the follow-ups, these things should not like you
Please
should have to like you should not
don't
have
even
to
get started about follow-ups.
like Facebook solve this. Like I don't have to follow up with someone when I send a message. Like I see it if they read it or not, right? Same thing with like the LinkedIn or whatever. But for some reason, like in procurement, you have to send an email unless you're using like you have a weird setup with like HubSpot and a CRM, and you can track if they open it or not. I mean, like you have no idea. Like maybe it's in spam. Maybe it's like it's not there. Maybe like the guy's on vacation or whatnot. You should have visibility about like if they interacted with this digital asset, so that you can know, okay, well, at least he read it, I know that I'm going to have something. But right now, most of the procurement folks that I know, they're in they don't know. They're just going to do follow-up. Like, I didn't respond, I'm going to call him up. Or he didn't respond to that, leave a message, and then just send an email again. I mean, that's a recipe for like a good headache, like on a weekly basis.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the whole vendor management aspect of the procurement relationship. I mean, there's so many like relationships that have gone sour because, hey, I sent you the RFQ or I sent you the proposal, you never coded, you guys have become too good, and then you end up realizing that you put something wrong or put the wrong email or you forgot to add some person in something. So it's definitely there. Um, uh, my take on this is like anything that has an approval process also should be automated. Like especially when you need to get like if it's a purchase requisition, we know they're complex, they require time, there's hierarchical structure. The automation will not only cut down the time of the approval cycle, but also remove a lot of redundant steps. Enabling your team to essentially do more POs. The same, there was this survey recently happened, like 43% of organizations were admitting that they have inadequacies or like problems in their PO practices despite having a PO system and despite having systems. I feel like there is no resistance from companies in general to get systems and to get expensive tools to help them benefit from automations. But when you sort of go down to the process on the ground with the end user, you realize like there's a lot of, we got the most expensive ERP solution that was out there and we're using it, right? But despite that, you still have to open every file and take one reading out of it, put it in my SharePoint, take a screenshot, send it to my boss through WhatsApp, and like all of this this stuff also happening despite having state of the art technology. So how do you see, a follow-up question is like, why is this shit happening? Where like as a VP of procurement, I'm investing $1 million, $2 million, $3 million into this PO software. Why is it just not magically solving all my problems, and I'm still struggling with this?
Exactly. And I think it all boils down to like trying to get that thing that does it all. This thing can do everything, right? It touched all of my points, but then when you get to the users and the one that actually use it, like it doesn't work with their use cases. So their mindset will be like, okay, I see this software. Let's say that you bought super expensive. It absolutely doesn't work for my use case. So thank you very much. I'm going to go back to my half-baked Excel spreadsheet, and then we're going to work with this. And whenever you're going to ask me to put it there, I will begrudgingly go back and put the data in it. And it will just be a drag, right? And that's a big issue. It's because the softwares are not, like if you build it for anybody, most of the time you're building it for no one really, right? So that's the issue. Like enterprise completely white software, I don't think that they're the solution. I think like very specific software that like kind of integrate with the rest and that shows a direct value to the end user actually using the thing. This is what's needed. And if we can, if we think procurement software as an example, this one is a tricky one, right? Because there's like three set of customers or like customers users that you have to satisfy, right? You have to satisfy the manager of procurement, because at the end of the day, they want to be able to collect information and then make some kind of decision, right? And then you have the actual procurement professional doing the stuff, right? And the software needs to be usable in such a way that they will not bypass it. Because as soon as they bypass it and they don't use it for whatever reason, well, you don't collect the data, so the manager is pissed off, right? And then you have the suppliers, right? In some sort of way, they have to interact with it, either indirectly or directly, but you have to set it up so that everybody in the ecosystem is involved and find delightfulness and enjoyment from the experience. And if this is not happening, you don't have a good procurement software, right? And I think this is is kind of abstracted in most things that are out there, like the most expensive, like ERP module and whatnot, because that's a hard problem to solve, and you need to be really focused on it in order to solve it properly.
Cool. So I guess in conclusion, what would be your parting advice to somebody who listened to this? They went and checked out their solution and they're like, okay, clearly there's a lot of manual stuff going on. Yeah, what would be your piece of advice of like how to choose the right procurement / automation tool, and how to know that it's working well? What are some of the things that they should look at?
Definitely. So my advice here, right, is first off, do an inventory about where your time is spent, right? And look at your job description and look at the rest that you're absolutely not doing, right? They told you that you will be doing this, right? And make the case for that. Right? That's the first thing. If like most of your time is spent on like the nitty gritty, like manual thing, and it's a big portion, that's a big waste, right? And look at your aspiration and stuff and what you actually want to do, and all of the rest that you are not doing. Because if in your procurement right now and you're doing manual stuff that is just continuously the same thing over and over, you're not doing the full of procurement, and it's kind of a disservice to the company, right? So there's the problem in both sides, because the company sets you up so that you only do this small pool of stuff, but it will benefit from you doing like the more higher level type of stuff. So this is the first thing. And then look at some vendor out there, right? Look at some vendor and then figure out if however this thing is set up will help reduce that load. If the answer is no, you don't need to push and then just try it out and whatever. Like literally look, is this thing gonna solve like this, the gunky part, or are they trying to sell me on the thing that I'm not even doing right now, right? And that's the process I would follow. And then as soon as you find one this is an easy case to make for management. You take this software and you take this thing that this tally that you set up, and you're like, look, I find a way for me and other people to do less of this, which will be beneficial for everybody, and for me to do more of that. Or as soon as you find the software, find another company that is using it, and then you're good to go.
Yeah, definitely. Just one last piece of advice I would add to that is make sure you connect it to your central system. That is super important, because if you have to do the work twice and there's no integration or something that can happen between your e-procurement tool and your ERP solution, then this is going to be a problem. And like I guess what you said earlier, like when you get an ERP, don't expect everything's going to get automated. It's going to get much worse in the start, and then eventually, if it's a good ERP, you'll be able to start to reap the benefits. But procurement as a function, especially when it comes to vendor management, is separate from your ERP. ERP is a good tool for you to manage your internal operations. But when it comes to somebody on the outside, look for a cloud solution or something that works more user-friendly and is adaptable on that side. And I guess the last thing, analytics and data, you need to keep looking at, okay, like what you said, right? Like, how much time are we actually saving? We brought this $1 million investment. Was it really worth it at the end? And did it increase our efficiency or not? If you don't have good analytics in place about whatever automation you're doing, you'll have no idea if the automation actually helped you or made it worse. Cool. All right. So yeah, I guess those are all of the stuff I wanted to ask. I don't know if you want to add anything, Yacine, towards the end.
I had a comment, but I completely forgot it. Yeah. So absolutely no. That you said it all. Do that. Do the thing that Hamad said.
Cool. All right, guys. So yeah, thank you so much for listening to our podcast today. Make sure to hit subscribe and keep sharing your comments about what would you like to hear next, or the topic that you would like us to research and discuss next on. Yeah, and wish you all a wonderful rest of your day, evening, and a great week ahead.